Welcome to Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today is a believer of authentic human connection. It's the foundation of everything meaningful. That's why he started Orlando Life, a lifestyle brand site with the mission of telling the stories of people, businesses, shaping our culture, and connecting you to life in Orlando. Please welcome the owner and founder of Orlando Life, Dave Vanz. What's going on, Dave?
Hey, what's going on?
Since it's a lunch break, I always like to ask the question, Dave, what is your go-to lunch or sandwich?
So I don't necessarily have a go-to sandwich. I think I'm very traditional. If I go to a sub shop, I'm going to be choosing like an Italian sub. You know, I think where our conversation first started at Stasio's, we went from breakfast with Biggie to now I'm doing lunch with Biggie. This is incredible. Stasio's is really good. And it's not just even like the sandwich. It's the vibe of the whole place. Another place I like is Parati's. New York Deli, Winter Garden. And then another spot that I don't hear too many people talk about is a little Korean spot called the Neighborhood Eatery in downtown Orlando. We just fell there one time. I don't even know how we ended up there. And from that point, it was like the name of the place didn't match up necessarily with the style of the place. And I went, okay, that's weird. The food was fantastic. And I brought a number of people there on lunch breaks. And I have come to find that they go back consistently. So that's another one of my favorite spots.
What do you get there when you go to the neighborhood?
The Wasa Beef Bowl, I think it's called.
Okay. I like that. I'm going to put it on my list. I've never been. I've heard of it, but I've never been.
Yeah, very unassuming.
Yeah. No, I like those. Those are my favorite places. My favorite places are those, the unassuming ones, the whole little hole in the walls, or even places that you're just kind of like, oh, I didn't even realize this was here. So, I love that. I love that. So I wanted to talk because I've been following you. You've been following me. We got a chance to meet during the holidays, and actually put a face to social and meet in IRL. So which is great. And then we did get to have breakfast together to talk a little bit more. So I kind of wanted to have. I thought it'd be a great time to have you on as a guest, have you talk a little bit about Orlando Life. And before we kind of get into what the backstory of Orlando Life is, I wanted to kind of get an idea a little bit about how you started, like in the aspect of, you know, how you got to Orlando. What were you doing before? What made you decide to even start Orlando Life?
Oh man, I can't say all this in a quick paragraph. First of all, man, thank you for having me here. Big fan of the show. Big fan of your vibe in
Thanks.
general. I mean, you have fun with your apparel. I love anything communal, you know? It's just the idea of bringing people together, and you've done that now through products and food and content. So just want to give you major props for that.
Thanks, Dave.
So I came from Detroit, born and raised, lived in the Metro Detroit area, ended up in early 2000 getting involved with the city of Detroit. Unexpectedly fell in love with wanting to learn photography. And I put myself in the city, which I was raised to be afraid of. You know, like Detroit was this big, scary place. There were bumper stickers and shirts that said Detroit, where the weak are killed and eaten. And so you're just you have this belief that don't go to Detroit, big, dangerous place. You went there for North American International Automotive Show. You went there for Red Wings games, Tigers games. But other than that, don't go. And God forbid you take the wrong turn. Right. And can't forget about the Electronic Music Festival. That was fantastic there. Did my thing in Detroit, involved with the local culture there. 2008, like many others, really punched us in the face. The houses around our home were being foreclosed. My wife lost her job. I had my investor with my company, DetroitCity.com, and he was a real estate investor, so he lost everything. And we were just sitting in a spot where it was, he couldn't invest anymore. My wife she was the director of a preschool. They sold off the preschool. She didn't work there anymore then. And we're going, what's next? And I had so many connections in Detroit, but still even that wasn't good enough because there were so many layoffs. It was really ugly in the Metro Detroit area. And so my wife was offered a position here in Orlando. I loved coming to Florida when I was younger, and I loved heat. I am one of those weird guys that loves humidity here. And so I said, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go. We got to feed our kids. And we had two boys. One was just born the year prior. So 2010, we moved and we landed in Orlando. And it was funny. My wife said, I don't ever want to live in Florida. And I said, no, I love the heat. I'd love to try it. She ends up loving it. I ended up hating it because I'm going, where's my culture at? You know, we moved on the new side of Windermere on 535, and I was shocked. You know, there was cow pastures across the street, and I said, this is the back of Disney. Now, granted, a year later, it got developed, but it took a month or two before I started getting antsy and started figuring out how do I meet people. And so I no longer have all my Detroit sports fans that I can go watch games with anymore. The mom and pop shops that I'm very familiar with, they're not around. I didn't know where. There was a place, I remember looking for a Coney place and found Detroit Joe's or Detroit Coney Joe's in downtown. We went there, it was already closed. So I had a hard time finding culture. So I just started meeting people in the nearby communities. I started organizing volleyball Sundays where we would light up the grill. We'd say, bring your food. We're going to play volleyball. And we play from like 12 to 7 p.m. every Sunday. We played football in Winter Garden. We'd go to Winter Garden in this field and organize football events. And Wednesdays, I think we did tennis, and Thursdays basketball, or vice versa. And then we'd go work out together. So I met this group and we became super tight. We were all from not here. And we were all like every human, you desire relationships, right? And so we found each other and we supported. And the next 3 years were incredible. Just that relationship, that community. And then one guy comes in one day and says, I have to go back. I have to leave. I'm going back home. I'm taking over a partner position at this financial firm that he was at, and he can't do it from Orlando. The next guy in the group, well, if you're leaving, we're leaving. And the next guy, if you're leaving. And it was a domino effect. And I watched my community completely dismantle. And I looked at my wife and I said, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to try to skip through this as much as possible. But I ended up getting a job offer in Nashville. So I said, you know what? Let's go. If we did it here, we can do it there. While this was happening, I'm going, something doesn't feel right about it. But I just chalked it up as moving jitters. So we end up moving. Day one, when I got there, I look at my wife and I go, you're going to kill me. We made a mistake. We need to go.
Let me interject here. So, because you moved in it was 2010, right? Is when you moved
in here. This is 2013.
2013. Okay. That's why I was trying to figure out if it was 2012, 2013, because of the year wise. So 2013, Nashville, and you've just now told your wife, no.
Yeah. But I couldn't give a reason why. Okay. I just said, we belong in Orlando. And so her first words are, I'm going to kill you. She loved her job where she was at. And you took me away from the job that I love to come here because blah, blah, blah. And so she looked at me and she says, you find the job to bring us back and I'm going to be staying home and don't expect me to engage in community and build community here. So I was like, all right. Now, mind you, I'm an extrovert. I love being around people, give me energy, very community driven, very purpose driven. I'm coming home every day and basically putting the kids to bed, lighting candles and meditating on why the hell am I coming back to Orlando? So a lot came through my head at that point. It was, we lost our community. That was the biggest driver. Once we no longer had relationships, Orlando lost its attractiveness to us, its allure. And then I went, okay, but why wasn't the weather or the entertainment, which I would argue our entertainment is far better than Nashville's. Why is it that wasn't good enough to keep us here? And so it became very community focused. But that's one thing. But what's my purpose for going back? Again, I'm very purpose driven. So I started thinking about what is the state of Orlando. When I first came here, I was introduced to the area through a number of people. One, the editor for the Detroit News back in Detroit had introduced me to the editor here. The editor in Detroit News was funny. He was a competitor of my platform, even though I owned a social network and he was a newspaper. We produced content that was attracting the audience that they couldn't get. Yeah. And so when I left, he surprisingly introduced me to the editor here and said, hey, Detroit lost one of our great minds. You should meet him. And so I got introduced a bit to it, but I just felt like, what was happening in Orlando? What is it that I can do here? And what I realized was that compared to Detroit, because again, that's my comparison, Detroit was a rich cultural history, hundreds of years of rooted cultural history that brought people all rooted for the same teams. It was a lot of mom and pop shops. The people that came off the boat from like all these different countries were opening up bakeries and restaurants. There was a lot of that rooted culture. And I felt like here, while we may have celebrated 150 years, when did Orlando really get put on the map? And it was obviously when Disney came. It has its history, right? But that's where the attention came onto Orlando. And that kind of presents the weird opportunity, right? The whole world knows about Orlando, but do they know the local identity of Orlando? And I saw an opportunity in the sense that we're not talking about our history as much as we're participating in the process of writing it right now. So to me, that's opportunity. That's okay, you get to be a part of something, right? That you can't get in any other city. And at the same time, a city that's so widely known, right? So that was one. And then what is it that I play a role in that, which was the idea of I love bringing people together. I love stories. I love content. I love innovation. I love all these different things. We came back with the idea that let's bring people together. Landed back here. It took 6 months to find a job. I land back here. We buy a home. And by the way, when we buy a home, I'm looking at the house not from a, hey, does our family, is this a good house for our family? I'm looking at it like, can I host parties here? So
Really?
yeah. And I see the backyard. We have a big pool. The house needed a lot of work. It was an older home, 1980s. And I said, okay. So the first thing I did, we bought the house. I started building a tiki bar and started renovating the entire area. And I started hosting parties at our tiki bar with live music from local musicians. We brought in like local craft beer and say, okay, let's support local beer. And it just started that way. And we did that for a few years. And then fast forward now, I start sketching out what is now known as the O for Orlando Life. I sketched it out because I started dreaming about wanting to tell the stories of the people that I felt were participating in shaping the culture. And it started with a quick meetup, met with a small group of people, told them about the vision. A week later, one of the guys, Brett Young, shows up and says, I got something for you, hands me over a physical replica of the O that I had designed. And I'm going, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So he gifts that to me. And then a week later after that, I do my first interview. And mind you, I don't really know how to shoot video. I'm editing an iMovie. I don't really know what I'm doing. It's one of those things where you shoot video and then you go back and you're like, God, I hope it didn't mess up.
When was that first interview? What year? Do you remember what year? 17, right?
2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me pause you for a second because obviously you had some idea or foundation based on what you've created when you did Detroit City, correct? Like, so Detroit City, there's some elements of Detroit City of when you created this website, of your social website for Detroit City and all of that. I guess I'm curious of, like, from the context of, and we can get, as you're telling the story, I kind of want you to be able to give me or paint me a picture of how that's evolved in the sense of where you had this idea, because you're basically now recreating or creating a new version of a concept of a Detroit City to now Orlando Life, or a version of it. And I know that's got to be interesting, like an evolution of having to start over and creating all these new, like, relationships and all these things that go with it.
So two very different sites, but one common thread: human connection. It's always been about human connection with me. If you go back to everything that I've done, everything is about bringing people together. DetroitCity.com was a social network geared towards local Detroit, Metro Detroit, that leveraged the culture of the city, the music, the entertainment, the sports, the food, all of it together into one platform. You'd sign up, you could create a profile, add friends. It was the first social network on the internet for a city, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Orlando Life is not that. It's more, it's interesting. I call it a publication, but at the end of the day, Orlando Life is a brand. It's a brand that I hope is a great representation of our cultural identity. I want people to look at the O and think Orlando culture. This is Orlando, right? But we do it through content, storytelling. And the reason why I focus on storytelling is because as humans, we buy into things on how we emotionally connect to them. And there is no better emotional transfer than through human story. We love seeing ourselves in other stories. It's why you go to the Fast and the Furious movie and you leave doing 80 miles an hour around an off-ramp on a highway, right? Like, we see ourselves in other people. And so I love the human story aspect of everything. So Orlando Life started as just, I want to tell the stories of the people, because to me, at the end of the day, no offense to the foodies out there or the people who love happy hours or cocktails, but we can argue over which city has the best food, but you cannot argue over the fact that Orlando has Biggie, right? Like, you're not in Chicago, right? You're here. And so the greatest asset we have is you and me and everyone else that calls this place home.
Yeah, no. And I think that's something that I appreciate, because I am a huge proponent and fan of Orlando, and obviously the fact of being able to share the aspects of what's wonderful about us other than the theme parks. I mean, obviously theme parks are great, but there's so many, like you said, there's so many other aspects to this community. And I think that's the part where I think sometimes people get surprised or they find it underrating when they, or like, when they're like realize like, oh wait, Orlando's a foodie town. I thought they just have the chains. Well, yeah, we have chains, but we also have a lot of local small businesses and other small businesses and people doing creating of things. I also think that, and I tell a lot of people this, the wonderful thing about Orlando is very similar to a Seattle or Portland that you go to, is that if you have an idea, you actually have the ability to create it and do something here that you probably wouldn't be able to do somewhere else, just because there is an openness of people to find that, or to be able to have you experiment and try those things that you may not be able to do in other cities.
I 100% agree. I refer to it as, okay, if you were to like a turnkey house, right? You want to buy a house you don't want to have to do any work on? It's great. You can just walk in and enjoy it, right? And I feel like other cultures are like that. If you like a New York culture, or your Detroit culture, Chicago culture, if you like those cultures, you can go just buy into it and participate. And I feel here, it really is attractive for the people who want to get their hands dirty, who see this as like, hey, I can make a name for myself here, or I can be a part of something that isn't necessarily established and participate in what that story looks like for this city.
How, I know the big area, obviously the connection community. How do you personally define Orlando life?
So you're going to reverse the question on me that I ask everyone else.
That's good.
I define Orlando life. I use one word: diversity. I'm raising my kids here, and I see what they have as a community with their schools. I did not grow up with that kind of diversity. It's unbelievable. And that diversity infuses itself in everything that you experience here. So from a cultural standpoint, I think we're defined by experiences. I think that is influenced by, obviously, the stuff that's made for the people who don't live here. But we are a city of experiences, right? But those experiences are led by a diverse group of people who have come from all over the world. So for me, Orlando life is all about diversity. Outside of that, I believe that because we are flat, we're not mountainous, anybody, no matter who you are, can pretty much get out and move at any pace, but it's moving, right? Which is so different. So I do believe we are a city of wellness as well. But at the end of the day, I define Orlando life as that diverse community that allows you to participate in its story and go out and experience what other people are creating through their story.
Yeah. And one of the things that I enjoy about Orlando life, and I'm kind of curious because we tend to, like, it's interesting because, and you and I were talking before the podcast started, like how we tend to be sometimes creatures of habits, and we sometimes tend to be in our circle and not leave our circle. And there's so many other places to kind of go. So I'm kind of like, is that something that you've seen? I mean, I feel like, because we were talking about it, like I was mentioning to you, like how I very rarely go to Claremont. I very rarely go to, like the DeLands and all that stuff, places outside of our little bubble area. And I think it's so important to be able to kind of share those things, especially since here, even though we can walk to a lot of these places and move to a lot of these places, we technically don't have the infrastructure of public transportation to take you places. So you're going to be in a car anyhow. So what's the big deal driving 20 minutes one way, 20 minutes another, 40, 30, So to me, that's one of the biggest things that I find to be so interesting, because I think when you look at Orlando life, I believe, and you and I talked about it, Orlando life obviously is the name of it, and obviously it's central, but you kind of created a parameter around that, like a radius, correct? Of that. So when people are reading stories, they're not just reading stories of like, oh, downtown Orlando. Correct. They're reading about other locations and things like that.
Yeah. I think if you like something, everyone is willing to drive 30 minutes to go experience it. And obviously even more so, right? Let's also take a look at the fact that part of the perk of living here is that in 2 hours, you can be in a completely different area on the ocean, experiencing an island, experiencing different things. So it is a perk to being here, right? But for Orlando life, the focus is, and I shared with you that if I drop a pin at the Kia Center and you remove all traffic, how far can I get in any direction in 30 minutes? That to me, and that is a adjusting line, right? Like if it's 35 minutes, it's not like I'm going to avoid that, right? So I try to think about what that looks like, and then I try to cover stories in that area. And that's hard. I mean, like you said, it's easier for me to invest in a small bubble and really pour into that. I'm trying to keep this brand. It's not a personal brand. I'm not an influencer brand. I'm trying to keep this as diverse as possible so that whether I'm attracting someone who likes one thing versus another, that they're going to find a place within the content that we've. that we uncover and tell on Orlando Life. So yeah, a 30-minute radius, no traffic from the Kia Center.
I think I like that. I mean, that's kind of, you got to have a starting point somewhere. You kind of, and you got to own your you got to own your backyard. So I totally get that. What do you think has been the biggest challenge you face when trying to capture? Because since you're trying to capture all these different authentic local stories, what do you think has been the secret to overcoming some of that? Because there's a lot of noise and a lot of things that are like, trendy and things like that. Like, what are the things where you're kind of, what's been your biggest challenge on trying to find those things to tell those stories?
So that's a great question. I'll take that in two parts. Authenticity, which is a fun buzzword that's thrown around a lot. To me, I'm super sensitive to authenticity. And I hope that shows in the work that I do. I've tried to jump on a trend really quick for fun, and it feels icky at most of the time.
Yeah.
But for me, it's when I go out and I find a story to tell that I find fascinating. First of all, I have to feel it, right? Like I want to go out and tell that. It is approaching it with curiosity and knowing that person is probably seeing it from an opportunistic standpoint. Like, hey, if I get my story told, that maybe I get something out of it, right? Like my business grows or I can move my agenda, when really they're oftentimes hit more with, I'm there to figure out their why. Like, I want to know what makes them want to wake up and do this every day, right? So that's always fun. On the flip side of that question, doing that kind of work is very tasking. If I could invite my family into this moment right now, they would probably have a lot more to say about the time that I have sacrificed away from them and have ignored them to come and tell the stories of other people, and doing it with no financial return. So when I started this platform, I rejected any notion of making money with it. I did not want that to ruin and make people think I'm doing this because I want to make money. And when I met Sheena Fowler, I was doing a story on her, I don't remember the year. She goes, "How are you making money with this?" And I said, "I'm not." "Why?" I said, "Well, because I don't want to ruin the authenticity of it." She goes, "You need to get over that." And I've tried, but I'm not willing to risk the quality of what I'm doing and the reasons why what I'm doing at the cost of, you having a pop-up ad or having to do a paywall, or like now I'm junking up the site. I want this to feel good. This is my artwork, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I think this too. You produce this podcast and you've got to go back and edit. I'm not sending 5 questions off to people, getting a copy paste return, and I'm just uploading it and say, "Hey, send me a photo." I'm taking the pictures. We're doing the photography. Have I used other people's pictures? Very rarely have I used other people's pictures. I like to have my own original content. So I'm editing a long form. I'm doing short form content. I'm editing it for LinkedIn, but I'm also letting it for Instagram, or I'm letting it for the blog. And I'm doing all of this. And sometimes it takes 24 to 48 hours to produce one story. And that sounds ridiculous, but that is my approach to authenticity. And so the hardest challenge is, how do you find the compensation to support that work so that you can maintain that quality? And I think the challenge, and I don't have a solution for this yet, is, look, I'm not trying to squeeze the mom and pops. I want them to fight and maintain their business. It's the challenge of finding the bigger businesses to say, we're not here just to take advantage of tourism dollars. We want to support the local stories.
Yeah.
That's a challenge that I'm not doing this to sell a product. I'm not, but like, how do I do this? And I've looked at, I'm looking at clothing, hats and stuff like that. Like, how do I find ways to support this? But regardless, I'm still keeping true to why I started it, and I'm still putting in the work to do it. And so so there's 2 stories of that. Authenticity is the curiosity, but the other challenge to authenticity is, how do you maintain that level of production with no one's paying me to write articles for them.
Yeah.
It's going out and finding it. And I'm not staying I'm not just doing food. I'm trying to do tech. I'm trying to do entertainment. I'm trying to do the arts. There's so much I'm trying to do. So that's a challenge. I'm still fighting for it, but I'm not willing to sacrifice the authenticity of the work that I'm doing to achieve that, because I really do believe that we're in a very unique spot in Orlando where our local culture needs an identity.
Yeah. And it's not just you, right? I know it's you, but I mean, do you have other people that are like kind of contributors or helping along in the process as you've started this? Because I mean, obviously in the beginning you started it yourself, but I'm assuming you have gotten some bits and pieces of help from others.
Yeah, I've been able to work with the Nicholson School with interns. Also had some great people who have come in and have been able to go out and interview. That's taught me how to manage interns. I've never done that before.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I've had recently in the last year, I've had a couple great people that have jumped in. Siri Andino, who loves fashion and the culture around fashion here in Orlando. It's something that I really wanted to be represented here. In Detroit, I did an event with local fashion designers, and it was such a good vibe that I've wanted to find that here. And there are some great, incredible designers that are doing some cool things here. And so she's been approaching from that standpoint. Caleb Paul, who is his heart and passion for helping professionals network better. I asked him, will you create content to maybe bring your value to an article that I can distribute so we can help the professionals here connect better? And so he's come on and we've done events together, and I host events, but I put on events, but then find hosts to support that. So I've done an art event, and my friend Karis Baker, who's an incredible artist and a great community leader, she's come in and been the host of my event. It's an Orlando Life event, but it's hosted by. I love collaboration. And by the way, I also love competition. So I'm not like, collaboration over competition guy. I think you need both to keep you sharp, right? But in the moments, I look for ways to reach out and go, hey, can you come in and help? And I know that, I've even brought up to you, we can do some stuff together. You've got a great podcast, and you're focused in a very specific area, and I would love for that. And I put that invite out because if you're creating good content, I would love Orlando Life to be a platform more of as an umbrella. It's not the Dave Vanz show. For the longest time, I've kept myself off of it. I'm now putting myself out there a little bit more, but I want this to be, again, I want this to be a brand that represents the local culture, that gives the culture here a voice.
No, and I love it, man. I love, this is one of the reasons why I do what I do as well. So I get it. And I appreciate when people are trying to do things like this and get the message out, because I do think our community in Orlando needs to see these things. They need to understand, and they need to kind of be able to support these things, because these are kind of things of like you're doing as almost like an act of love. It's kind of like an awareness and growth, because who doesn't want to live in a good city where culture is grown and developed, and you've created a community? And I think that's kind of the big thing of us, especially in Orlando being considered a transient city where everyone is coming from so many different places, but you all come here. And that's one of the things that I've always loved. That's why I've lived in Orlando so long, is because I feel like it's like a melting pot of all these different cities and places and everything, which there's aspects of it that I love. And then there's some aspects that I wish we could, I would love to create that culture and that whole area where there is a little bit more unitedness in Orlando. And I do think there is, but in some areas I kind of wish, there's definitely room for growth on it. So I definitely can see that. I'm kind of curious because you and I talked briefly a little bit about Detroit, and how I knew how Detroit had kind of evolved. And I know our downtown scene's is definitely going through, I would say, maybe kind of early stages or something similar-ish to what Detroit probably went through in the beginning kind of area. So coming from another city, and seeing resurgence, what trends are you seeing that kind of excite you, that you kind of see that are coming into Orlando or happening in Orlando from what you're seeing and from what you're gathering?
Can I play both sides of this?
Yeah, play me both sides.
The exciting part of what I'm seeing, and also kind of a little bit of a caution.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Okay. Every city has its issues, right? And for the record, lived long enough to know that crime and other things happen everywhere. There's just watch the news. I don't like watching it, but you hear about it and you're like, oh, it happened in this town. Doesn't mean you stop going there, right? Detroit was eerily vacant. Orlando doesn't have what Detroit was going through. I went to Detroit in the early 2000s, and the only people on the streets were homeless people and Kwame Kilpatrick, who was the mayor. It was basically tumbleweeds. It was like if you went downtown or walked around the streets during the COVID lockdown. That's what Detroit felt like. And it was bizarre and strange. And I explored the streets, and it was sad, but yet fascinating. So it was just a weird spot, which I fell in love with the city because of the architecture and all that, right? Orlando, when I talk to people here, I know people that love downtown, they go downtown. And then I have another group of people that I talk to, and they're like, oh no, Orlando's dangerous. And yet I'm outside of the nightclub scene, but I've gone down late at night, and I've gone to I love house music, and I love live bands. And so, I've been down there and I've walked out and I've seen it, right? I've done events down there, and okay, it's different. Not everyone looks like me, right? There's crime that's happened. There's that exists in every city. And I think even when I did the DetroitCity.com site, it was about using Web 2.0 technology to kill the ignorance, is what I refer to it as. How do we, it's the sharing of information. Stories transform minds. So telling the stories of what's going on gives people the information that kills the ignorance and opens up the door as an invitation to them to go experience something, right? I think the city has done an incredible job at building a narrative that has put the fear in people. And I think it's wrong. You do not have to post pictures of everything that you've pulled over and confiscated. When I had my car impounded because I parked in the wrong spot in my condo and they towed it away, and I woke up the next morning going, someone stole my car. Nope, it was impounded because someone complained it was parked in the wrong spot. I went there, and this is not in downtown Orlando, and I got to see the cars. They were like, don't touch anything. They talked about the crime that was happening, and this happened with this car. And I'm going, oh my gosh, these people exist around me? Like, there's crime everywhere. And if you celebrate that by sharing it as posts, not that they're celebrating it, but they are, if you share this is all that I communicate about Orlando from a city standpoint, the people that are following the city are going to develop an impression that Orlando is this big, dangerous place. I've gone down there. I'm not saying, yes, like you shouldn't be aware, but you shouldn't be aware anywhere late at night, right? Yeah. Orlando does need more foot traffic. And there are things that it needs. It needs businesses that you can shop at during the day. What I'm concerned about is that we have a massive infrastructure that was built to cater to the people who don't live here. They come here for a lot of things, from the theme parks mostly, right? But they're starting to come for other big events. Like we do look, the Citrus Bowl, right? That's happening here.
All the bowl games.
Like these things are not just for people who live here. They're for outsiders as well, right? That they're meant to draw traffic in to leverage the infrastructure that we have. That's exciting. But my concern, and I'm a little hesitant on celebrating it fully, is that our local identity, that tourism is creeping into the downtown area. And my concern is that the downtown Orlando area is going to turn into a Disney Springs Part 2. And it's not going to have, culture is not something that you just microwave, you fabricate and create. Culture is defined by time. It needs time, and there's failures in that time, and there's successes in that time, but it should be defined by the local identity, not by catering to the outside world that does not live here, right? And so I think we're at this moment in time where local identity needs to come together and stand so that it is not bulldozed. And it doesn't mean that you can't play well together, but there needs to be parameters. And so I really do caution the idea of just, excuse my French, shitting on everything and thinking that developers are going to come in and save it, right? Developers care about transactions. Locals care about identity. And I think we're at a very important time in our cultural identity, that what's going to happen here? Who do we become? And I think it's more important now than ever for locals to unite and come together and support that local identities before places are so expensive that the only storefronts that a company can afford is a Starbucks or Qdoba. Like we need local businesses to have a place in this. And so I'm not smart enough or like in the know of how that's going to be protected, but I'm concerned that that is not going to be protected, and the local identity is going to keep getting pushed out. And I don't want to see that happen, because we've got a lot of beautiful and incredible people doing wonderful things here. On the flip side, the excitement of Orlando is that we are a globally recognized community, and our story has yet to be fully written. So everyone that lives here that says Orlando's my home has a place to bring whatever if you were raised in Detroit, Chicago, New York, you see stuff, you see how things are. So you probably have an idea of what's needed. And so the exciting part of that is that we have yet to reach our potential. We have yet to reach who we are. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited. That's why Orlando Life exists, because I want to tell the stories of those people. I think Orlando is going to be a massive hub, and I'm just excited for the local identity of that and the people that are here that are participating in it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And that was something that when we talked earlier when we've met about that idea of, I could see the struggle, and I'd be very curious to see how that battle goes, with the idea of the corporate side to the local side, to how do you reinvent and kind of do a hybrid or a mix of maybe some of that corporate with some of that local, but actually so it doesn't become a Disney Springs 2 or millennia, type of thing, but more of a something that kind of you actually want to be able to go to and do. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening is you do have it where it kind of branches out, and that's why you kind of see some of these things that are happening on the outsides. And the outsides, the Sanfords, the Winter Gardens, all like the Winter Parks, all these different other little towns and communities, all building what they're building, and not being down in the downtown area, but kind of creating their own universes and their own thing. But it'd be nice to be able to kind of blend it all together, where downtown Orlando also does that aspect of it. And we'll see where it goes and how it kind of flushes out in the years to come. So I'd be very interested when it comes to stuff like that. I was kind of curious because obviously Detroit City, very popular, very, and the way you created it. And again, I know it's very different than what you've created with Orlando Life, but I'm kind of curious because when you're creating and putting so much time into Orlando Life, is there what's your definition of success on the website since you've started it? Because you started in 2017, and obviously it's evolved and it's increasing and growing. And that's one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I want more people to know about it, because obviously that's an area of growth and knowledge and just word of mouth. What's your definition of success on where you're on how you've kind of, from what you've experienced originally doing Detroit City to now doing Orlando Life?
It's a great question. Success is often tied to obviously transaction. Success for Orlando Life, one, just for me and seeing Orlando Life, is building a sustainable model. So I want that to be sustainable. But what I've seen is, when I started this, I didn't see a lot of people putting the emphasis on humans being the greatest asset of Orlando. I saw mostly, the content that goes out there that celebrates, the food, the experiences, and all that stuff is great, right? I feel that since that moment, I have seen a trend of people using the words that I've used over the years to how I describe things and how I see things, that they are becoming part of their vocabulary. Now, sometimes that hurts because I want them to go, hey, I learned this from this, whatever. Yeah. Maybe they didn't learn it from me. Maybe it's just a sign of the times. I don't know. I don't want to sit here and fluff my ego over here. But yeah. I think the success is that coming in and saying, hey, look, we're more than just cocktails and food and theme parks, that we are a community of people and of ideas and people that are doing things that matter and that care about creating a space for community. And that I've seen the narrative starting to shift over the last handful of years. Even had it where I was doing an interview and I found out that one of the organizations used Orlando Life as a guiding light on how they want to market their brand. And I was like, oh, that's really powerful, So I know that I've had impact on this stuff. So success to me was always to see this community thrive, to bring people together. And so I think seeing that happen for other people, but also for myself too, in general, is success is when the local identity, people start taking pride in it. When people start saying, I'm from Orlando, right? Instead of saying, oh, my hometown is this. It's okay to embrace Orlando as your home, right? And to bring your own. So success to me is seeing the local identity take shape and develop a foundational strength that can stand up against things that threaten it.
Yeah. No, I like that. And listen, it's funny because a lot of people sometimes will ask me the question on how do I measure success? And I know I'm a clothing brand and I have a podcast, and obviously there's statistical numbers on how obviously very easy to tell, are you successful or not? Are you making money? Are people actually listening? But I will say, and one of the things that I've always I've thought of this, or when you're passionate about something and you're doing something, and don't get me wrong, I want listeners to listen and I want people to buy my stuff, but I do these things regardless of who's listening or not, I will continue doing this because it's something that brings me joy. But I also feel like if I can get one person to just listen, to then be able to tell another person, or for it to influence or inspire someone to be like, hey, I want to do this. I wanted to do this. And I heard this person's story and I did it. To me, that's I'm being successful, even though sometimes, and you may know this because you may write things and people may learn about these things, but you may not hear a comment back going, hey, Dave, I read your article on Orlando Life, and that really, that person, that story that you shared about this person really was amazing. Sometimes you get it, but sometimes you don't. You don't know until afterwards. Sometimes you don't know what you're doing. You're just spreading the seeds.
You may never know. You may never know.
Yeah, exactly. You may never know, or you may somehow one day be like, oh, well, hey, we think you inspire and you do all these things, and you're like, oh, I had no idea that I did any of that. I just do what I do. And sometimes that's kind of a hard thing in this day and age, because a lot of times you want that, especially in the world of social, is the fact you want that immediate gratification, and you want to know like, hey, I'm doing it, and you want the pat on the back. And sometimes you kind of have to do things because you love it and you want to do it, and you want to be able to hope that it builds, and you kind of, and that's kind of the tough one sometimes, because we, like I said, we want that fast food reaction, that social media, that quick reply back, or like the like, or whatever those things. And sometimes it's just a build up, and then it comes. I don't know. It's just one of those things where, to me, it's like, it's so difficult, because sometimes people ask me the whys of why I do things, or why do you do this? Does anyone listen? And I'm like, oh, trust me, I ask myself these questions. But you do.
I mean, we're all puzzle pieces, and you're a big puzzle piece here in the Orlando community. When people see content visually, written, watching it on a video, listening to it, with every bit of content that they see is informing the vision of what they see Orlando as.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is doing it, right? No one is the sole owner of the picture of Orlando. We're all puzzle pieces. And the more content and the people that, like yourself, that are out there living out their why and using it to contribute to the community here, we're all participating in what the picture, what puzzle pieces all coming together, what Orlando looks like, what it looks like to us, what it looks like to the outside world. And so, like, you sharing this and you putting in your work is such, like, this is Orlando life. You know what I mean? Like, what you're doing right now is such a good contribution to how Orlando is perceived to other people outside. Because who knows who finds this, even if it's just one person. You hope it's more, right? But like,
I want more, yes. But yes, even if it's just one. And I appreciate all the ones that listen and sent me things and told me that I was like in their top 5 Spotify podcasts. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it, because I jokingly will tell you that my own wife doesn't listen to my podcast, but it's okay. I do want to talk, since we're talking about things. I've been a big fan of this, and it's something that I look forward for 2026 to be my trending thing, which is talking things into the universe. So I want you to be able to put into the universe. I want you to think about it, and then I'm going to ask for 2 things from you, because since we're talking about Orlando, I want you to put into the universe what you want for Orlando life, but then also what you want for Orlando in general.
For Orlando in general, I want to see more people coming behind those that are doing and supporting the efforts that they have. If there's someone doing something that you're thinking about, getting behind them and seeing the community kind of like tear down some of these silos. I want to see that happen for Orlando. I want to see more people coming behind the people that are already out there doing the work, taking pride in the city and supporting what they're doing. So that's what I want to see Orlando as, more or less. For Orlando Life, I see a publication that is becoming sustainable, but more so than anything, that when people see the O, they see themselves. They see Orlando. They see it as a representation that they're proud to see it and say, hey, I'm from Orlando, right? Like, they see the brand, and that becomes a marker for them to say Orlando, like a symbol, right? Oh, that's Orlando. And it's done through that because it's human and because it's authentic. And that's it.
I love that. And obviously and I always love to kind of the perspective aspect of this, because you obviously, like you said, you're married, have a family, you have a full-time job, so this is something that you do that, like, takes up quite a bit of time, but at the same time, it's something that you're building and developing and growing. So there's but at the same time, like, you want it to grow. So, and that's always kind of the hard part, is like the sacrifices of putting in that energy for something you're passionate about and wanting to do. And I think that's so important, because that's kind of the big area, the sweat equity, because again, small team, as being as a one-man sandwich shop, I feel it and I get it, because you have to, you figure prioritization of figuring out where things kind of go, how you want to do it. And it's tough. I mean, it's definitely a tough thing to do. And especially in your world, and I know, because I have like a love-hate with content. I love creating content, but I also hate it because it's a lot of work. And sometimes, especially when you make it polished, sometimes I just say, like, just throw it out there, just create content, do it out there, just kind of do it. So I definitely appreciate what the time and effort that you're putting into it, trying to create everything and get the word out, which I think is great. What advice would you have for someone wanting to start something?
Well, first of all, to create anything, to be creative is to be human. So everyone is creative. I think I recently saw something where it talked about everyone is creative. It just requires someone to be willing to make mistakes. So just know this: if you're looking to start something, you are creative enough to do it. What is the why? Like, who are you? What is driving you towards this? Understanding what that is incredibly important. Next, understand your goal with it. Are you looking to make money with it? Are you looking to just do it because you love it? Know that regardless of one way or the other, it's going to be difficult. It's going to require your time. It's going to be hard at times. You're not going to want to do it. And so just know that there's a lot of work behind it. But also, you ask yourself, are you really the one do you want to be leading all of it, or do you just want to be a part of something? I really do want to encourage community people in Orlando, because there's a lot of us here, and community groups struggle oftentimes with making money because they're not designed for that. They're designed for like, it's something that's burning up inside of them. They want to create community and they're willing to go out and do it for themselves, but they're also doing it for other people. I think we have a lot of giving minded people here in the community, which is incredible. But is there someone else already doing it? And could you see yourself, maybe reach out to them and see whether or not you can participate with what they're doing? If you want to build this as a business and it is transactional, make sure you have, lay out that plan. Reach out to someone who's maybe done it before and who is successful at it, and ask them how, this is what I'm looking to do. And I was wondering if I can get some feedback. Take them out to lunch, right? Listen to the Biggie podcast and figure out where you want to take them out to lunch. But look at those who are doing it before you go off and do it. Because again, starting anything, whether it's a business or a community group or whatever, is really exciting. And if you're wired that way, then I encourage you to go off and do it. But also look to see who else is doing it, and see whether or not you can come alongside them, reach out to them. They may be starting up and doing something and have a platform already built that the two of you working together could do something even more. But I mean, shoot, man, I'm the first person to take a leap and to jump and to do something that I care about. It's more to me than just a transaction. For me, I live my life from an emotional standpoint. So I want to do something that connects with my soul. But who cares how good you are? I mean, shoot, I was editing an iMovie. I didn't know how to operate a camera from a video. I knew I could take pictures, and even then I wasn't that great. But I learned along the way. I was a horrible writer for years. If you look back at my articles, they were god awful. They were it was just word vomit. I was dumping everything because I couldn't figure out what to leave out, because everything was great. I've shortened that. I've gotten better at it. But don't be afraid to take risks, man. You're human. You can be creative. And if you've got something to give back to this world, especially if it's here in Orlando, go after it. Do it. Make our city even better with your gifts.
I love that. If people, especially if they are interested and they love the idea of what you're trying to do and the mission of what you're trying to do with Orlando Life, and they have that skill, how, we'll use this as a tie-in. Where can people follow you? How can they enjoy reading and learning about Orlando Life? But also, if they want to be part of that community and help build this community, how can they reach you as well? So give me a little bit of the socials, how they can kind of start reading and learning more about the people you're talking about and the people that are in our community, and at the same time also be able to possibly reach out and be able to kind of maybe contribute as part of Orlando Life.
First of all, the website is orlandolife.com. Second, if you are interested in getting involved, I'd love to talk with you. Know this: Orlando Life is here to create lifestyle and business style content for professionals that live in Orlando, whether you're 25, 55. If you're working here to live a quality of life, we want to help connect you to both career stuff, but also to lifestyle stuff. Reason why? Because if you find friendships and you find advances in careers, then you are more likely to stay. And if you stay, then you take root. And when you take root, our culture begins to take shape. And so that is the overall reason why Orlando Life exists. So if that is interesting to you, if you have a niche spot where you want to talk about anything in the business industries here in Orlando or any of the other stuff from a lifestyle standpoint, I'd love to chat. OrlandoLife.com is the website. You can find our socials on there as well, but it's The Orlando Life on Instagram. It's Live the Orlando Life on Facebook. I don't use Facebook a lot. It's just mostly Instagram, LinkedIn, and you'll find stuff on YouTube as well. But just search up Orlando Life, you'll find it. And it's all right there. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me at dave@orlandolife.com.
Dave, I really appreciate you taking the time. I love the fact that we got a finally chance to meet in real life. I think we need to do more. People need to do more of that in the coming year. I think it should be a a goal. If you follow people and you have a good interaction and everything, maybe meet them in real life, and kind of create that community and that culture. I think it's something that I hope to be more involved with Orlando life. Maybe some podcast episodes of people that interest you, of some of my guests. I'm all about showing and highlighting more of these people. I think it's something that I think the more people know about all the amazing people that we have in our community, the more they can support and the more we can kind of grow together as a community. And I think that says a lot, because I do think Orlando is amazing, and I'm proud to live in Orlando. And I don't know, I just want more people to know about it.
Yeah, maybe we can do something where we pick like a sandwich shop and we just tell everyone we're all meeting here at 12 o'clock, and then
we can definitely create a new version of a sandwich eat up. I used to do sandwich eat up events. We can definitely maybe talk about doing something like that. Because I didn't want to do it wasn't a meetup, it was a sandwich eat up, because we would meet up, support another small business, and eat there. And it's something that I love doing. I did it for many years. COVID obviously kind of stopped it. But I do think that is something that we can definitely kind of look at as a possibility of something to kind of work together and kind of create something like that, where we could do a version of it where people can, meet, do community, eat sandwiches. I'm all about building sandwich community. That's something that I've always kind of wanted to do, and how I've done it the last 13 years. And I want to keep doing that and growing that here. So yeah, let's definitely, let's workshop that and see what we can do. That's our show for today. Thank you so much to Dave Vanz of Orlando Life for being on and having lunch, spending some lunch break with me. Definitely make sure to check them out online. If there's certain articles that you like, share it. If there's certain things, if you want to contribute and be part of this and kind of help build, reach out. I mean, it's like, you stop. This is a perfect excuse when you're listening to this in the beginning of the year. You're kind of, trying to figure it out. I know it's evergreen, but there's never a wrong time to start something. So if you're interested and you kind of want to be part of it, figure it out, be involved, do something. It's amazing to do it, to be able to do. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe. If you want to support, check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads. Do some shopping, tell your friends. Obviously, I'm all about sandwich selfies. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, everyone.